Hi folks, my name is Franco Tanelli and this is Science of Singing. Appoggio Step by Step, Part 2. Appoggio Zone or Appoggio Range. Discovering natural range or resonance and consciously controlling our breathing, the diaphragm, we can start slowly developing our appoggio range. Remember that appoggio technique helps you to develop one register singing, meaning that you don't use any placements. You use only natural placement and develop one register voice throughout the whole range. That's the goal of appoggio technique. So you develop your voice and separate notes without placing them in a particular place, or even the registers. You don't place your registers. You have only one register, and that's the philosophy of appoggio. I have to say that personal sensations of the registers are very common to all beginners and intermediate singers, even appoggio, because even appoggio singer who try to support his voice feels that something is changing or something has to be changed when he approaches his passaggio, so-called passaggio range. And depending on his philosophy, depending on his teachers, depending on many things, he will either take an appoggio approach or he will take placements approach. In placements approach, registers do exist objectively and subjectively. In appoggio, these registers exist only in sensations, because there is no evidence in the sound that you use registers. The sound is one and the larynx is not moving that much. Modern singers are so used to, so conditioned to register singing, that even those who intuitively found real appoggio technique, they still may think in registers. Why is that? Because regardless of technique, all singers have sensations of these registers. So when we approach so-called passaggio, we feel uneasy and we don't know what to do with that. And if the teacher tells us, oh, place it that way, we can switch the register and easy the way of singing this particular note, which is okay. But then it will be a division in or shift in color, in timbre. That's what appoggio technique doesn't like. Advanced appoggio singer usually doesn't have sensations of placement. It has rather like more or less stable sensation of the resonance, which is stable throughout the voice. And most of the sensation he concentrates his mind on is sensations of the support. So the physical sensations of manipulations with the diaphragm. That's what appoggio singers usually feeling and sensing. So what is appoggio zone? Appoggio zone or appoggio range is your natural resonant range, the one that you try to discover in the first step. This is your natural range, and you should be very strict about it. You should not exceed really range and sensations, easy sensations of this particular beginning, because that is important, that you develop this natural range into the full range. So the appoggio, I'd say rather, don't exceed your appoggio zone or resonance ever. But then you can ask me a question, but how may I extend my range? Again, I repeat, if you're not tired of listening, I repeat, you do it through support. We know that appoggio range or appoggio zone is usually less than 1 octave. But we need 2 octaves to become fully pledged opera singers. I repeat again, we develop this not exceeding appoggio zone, because appoggio zone ever stays with the singer. Then I can give you an interesting example. You can find an appoggio singer, not necessarily an old and very experienced singers. Among experienced singers, opera singers, there are not that many actually in opera. Or you may find an appoggio approach with a young student who sings Caro mio ben with absolutely natural range and support. And you don't hear the registers, you just sing, my gosh, this is beautiful, a beautiful instrument. Yes, Caro mio ben is not, it's maybe only challenging for a very beginning level, but intermediate and advanced level, it's fine. But if you sing within your appoggio range, within your appoggio zone, and you're not jumping into something more difficult that your diaphragm cannot handle, then you are an appoggio singer for the strange reasons. You don't, yes, appoggio singer with limited range, let's say. So you can hear a beautiful student beautifully singing Caro mio ben or antique arias with absolutely connected voice, and then in 5 years you hear him doing opera and you say, what happened to this voice? What happened to this beautiful voice? Why he start forcing? Why he start making some nasal notes? Why he's tensing so much? Because definitely he is a fast track opera singer. It happened to him because he studied with a particular maestro that he placed his high notes. So now he can audition for the opera companies and even accept it. And that is one of the enticement of the placement schools, because placement schools, and I recognize it, good placement, there are bad placement schools also, like any, there are bad appoggio schools also. A good placement school actually teaches you how, and teaches you faster actually, how to get to the higher notes, okay? But this way is not beautiful for me personally, because I hear the division in registers and I don't like it. I can give you the great example of placement singer who I adore, is Maria Callas. But I adore her not for her instrument, I would say. I adore her because she was a genius, and genius cannot be explained by just normal definitions. Yes, she didn't have such a beautiful voice, many say, and she had almost a terrible technique. She had divisions in her voice, like very few singers before. Nevertheless, she was able to capture the hearts and minds of many opera lovers, including me. So, but since I'm looking this problem from one point of view, from the point of the instrument, not the point of your personality and musicality. From the point of instrument, you cannot develop your voice, your instrument beautifully, connectedly, if you don't use appoggio technique. It's unbalanced pressure caused by static opposition of the diaphragm. Without the diaphragm, the compression will only be good for sulfiato technique. With the diaphragm, it's a classical approach. You can produce the classical sound, but then it's not balanced. It's not balanced. You can only balance it if you use the manipulation of the conscious breathing or manipulation of the diaphragm. That is appoggio. When we sing higher notes, for example, we have to increase the pressure on the vocal cords. And if we do so by only increasing the pressure, we will end up either switching registers or singing forcefully. So this pressure, increased pressure, has to be done with utmost balance. And the balance provider here is the diaphragm, active opposition of the diaphragm. It does not let pressure to pressure too much on the vocal cord. So it gives it, okay, here I am, okay, I'm stabilizing the pressure. But that's a conscious process, because if you try to do it automatically, it does not work automatically. It works automatically only within your so-called natural appoggio range, appoggio zone. You warm up yourself with pre-warm-ups, animalistic sounds, resonant sounds, or very comfortable lines from the opera or something. You can choose anything that is individually suits your resonance. There was a guy in a professional Russian bass, and he used to warm himself up with the phrase "Денег нету не будет, денег нету не будет." It means there is no money and I'll never be rich. That's a funny way of putting it, but you see, that's the resonance. Who cares? If you find out your resonance with even some gibberish combination of sounds, that really doesn't matter. After discovering your natural appoggio range or appoggio zone, as I told you before, you should slowly extend it. So let's say that our appoggio range is limited to from F to B flat, below middle C. Let's say that's where you sound natural and resonant. There's no point of giving you all possible ranges. I'm just telling you that when you discover, and that's usually less than a half octave range, which sounds naturally supported and resonant, then what you should do is that you should really start developing it through appoggio technique. So the slow development will show you later on what voice you are. Don't be fooled necessarily by the fact that you might think, oh, I'm a baritone because I have a darker voice, or I'm a tenor because I have a brighter voice. Don't yet think about it, just let it develop naturally. How do you develop it naturally? So you see, this is F and this is B. This is again one of the many possibilities of the natural range for you. It could be lower, it could be from C to G, or lower. So you have to discover that natural resonance, and then by your own, not listening to anybody else maybe, or if you have an appoggio teacher who guides you, then it's even better. Then you just increase this range through support, and for that you need conscious breathing. Because let's say if you go oh, and then you have to sing, let's say F, which is in a passaggio zone, and you're trying to do this phrase and you end up doing this oh. If you heard well enough that this was forced, it was on vocal cords. That might be happening not because you want it to happen, but you simply don't know how to support this note. And you see, there's many possibilities. When you don't support, you either your notes turn not so beautiful. Let's say they become nasal or throatal, like in this case. The placement teacher would tell you that's fine as soon as you support it, meaning that as soon as you produce the supported voice, not necessarily balanced voice, and you can sing those high notes with placement change, which of course deteriorate your connection. It doesn't make one register singing at all. Now, what appoggio would do in this case, he would not go there right away because he is not ready for this note. Appoggio technique should be ready to support this note beautifully. You see, there was open throat. I didn't change my placement. I didn't cover anything. I just supported the sound. So in order you to do that, you should not challenge yourself with high notes yet. You should slowly develop that range that you already have, resonant, and get it everyday rehearsals with a small range like this, right? And it could go either this way, or it can go either this way, or it can go that way. So you don't really know where you're going. You might go that could become a more higher voice or low voice. That will all depend on your nature. If you're really talking about discovering your natural placement, that's how it happens. So development, rather than singing this note right away, you would do and then you're just in between that, you don't know what to do. In this particular moment, what you need to do, you need to play around with the diaphragm, changing its balance. For this particular case, you have to push down a little bit. Our sensation. Now, in order to push down and in order what to push down, as I said previously, you need to consciously control your breath, because you will not have a sensation, just an explanation. Even me showing you something like this will not help you. But if you already control consciously your diaphragm and you know what is pushing down, then through these manipulations you slowly develop your range as one. And there are many examples of that. Unfortunately, lost in translations and lost in lack of intelligence, maybe people didn't realize that the one register singing is the most beautiful. Everybody recognizes that, except that how to achieve it, and you know, it's another story. So as I told you, step number one was develop to discover your natural range and natural, or appoggio zone, basically discovering your appoggio zone. And number two is slow development of this appoggio resonance, natural resonance, into the full range voice through support, not through manipulations, not through sending your voice somewhere or some there and the degrees or whatever, just through support and through chiaro scuro. Because remember, if you discover your really resonance, you already have chiaro scuro in a certain zone. This is the appoggio zone, chiaro scuro. So if you do have chiaro scuro, you don't need to cover your voice, or you need to change any registers, because you just simply support it. If you have a woofy voice, in that case, you did not discover your voice or your voice range. And then in that case, you will go, and then you will choke, because even through support, just only having support will not give you the right appoggio. So you see, appoggio is inseparable from chiaro scuro. Discovery of chiaro scuro, whether it's small few notes or the octave in phenomenal cases, and developing it through support, not through any other manipulation of the throat or anything else. That is the key for step number two, developing your appoggio range or zone. Comes from my own experience. When you explain in the most beautiful definitions what appoggio is, student still doesn't understand what appoggio is, because understanding in our case is sensations and feelings and experience. So like we are in a catch-22. So the teacher's task is to, if you have a control, to get you there and to tell you if you're doing it right, and you have to remember your sensation. I'm going to give you some examples of how you should approach so-called appoggio zone and how you should develop appoggio zone. So you should develop your appoggio zone through manipulations of compressions in your lungs, which is supported by low abdominal muscles and intercostal muscles. There are many complex things. It's easier to think at low abdominal muscles and diaphragm. Through this manipulation, you achieve a perfect air pressure necessary for that or that note. And if you achieve it by using these two forces, balanced forces, then you will not need to force yourself or to change registers. You just simply beautifully develop your appoggio zone, which could be very small or could be phenomenal, 1 octave full range, into beautifully sounding like natural voice. We know it's developed, but it still will sound like natural voice, not like a manufactured voice. That's what the natural voice is all about. And sometimes even people talk when you ask whether Franco Corelli had great technique, and the answer of my friend of mine, Maria Pellegrini, was she sang with Franco, and she said Franco, she didn't say he had technique, he said he was natural, and at the beginning I didn't grasp, was it a criticism or was it actually a great thing, because there was an intonation, kind of lost an intonation kind of thing. And then you realize that natural is the best praise, is the top. It didn't mean natural like on the street. It meant natural voice, like with an appoggio voice. Natural, so no technique. Now, in our case, of course, we have technique, but the real appoggio singer makes an impression that he sings without technique. There is no such a thing as I tell my student this: one of the greatest compliment when you come from stage is when somebody or critic or another singer or anybody else comes to you and says, "Wow, you have a great technique." This is one of the greatest compliments, and you should be happy. But I say this is not the greatest compliment. The greatest compliment is when you come out of the performance and people just simply say, "That was beautiful. That was beautiful." And this is important, because when there's a subtle message when you say you have a great technique. It means that your attention when you were listening to this particular singer still went to this technology. You've heard this high notes. It was like, oh my goodness, it's like circus in a way. But when you hear true work of art, then you don't have these sensations. You don't look at things technically. It's not artistic skating anymore. It's a ballet, and it's a real art. Thank you very much. That was Franco Tanelli, Science of Singing. And until next time, subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss the series that I'm posting of how to learn appoggio. And until next time, bye.
Dio, potei scagliar tutti i mali della miseria, della vergogna, dei miei baldi trofei trionfali maceria